For the most decades, we also has the euro has the most or the second best performing currency, the second trusted currency in simple terms. And the question is, can the euro really, replace the US dollar? Work as the next reserve currency? Come up and say it's the new global reserve currency. In this video, we're going to be breaking down that become the next reserve currency for the global use, and does it really have the guts to replace the US dollar that's facing a high debt of almost $37 trillion today? Well, first and foremost, I would say it's highest, and low. Keep it right. The euro will be working at the best currency, but according to its cultural terms and the way it came to, it faces a lot of backlash, simple terms. A backlash of where the euro, let's say in simple terms, I'm going to first look at the foreign policies. If you look at the fiscal policies of the euro, where it comes from, it's made of almost 27 nations that are running for the euro. And this involves almost 27 governments in simple terms. And when it says 27 government, that means almost 27 diplomacy policies that are getting developed. This involves uncertainty between nations in simple terms. The decision making that comes within these nations is kind of differ. They always have differ decisions. In simple terms, I will try to understand. Let's look at the dollar. The dollar has a single whatever a publisher policy. In simple terms, let's say it has what they call the Fed. Okay, the Fed, that's a Federal Reserve Bank of the United States of America. That helps in simple terms to understand how the euro should be. Sorry, how the dollar will be highly distributed and how it's implemented for its foreign interests. However, for the euro, that's where uncertainty is coming. The euro is made out of 27 countries. We should try to understand that. It faces a backlash over a difference in command. Cannot tell who orders what and who does it, simple terms. Who agrees with what and who doesn't agree with what. Meaning, you're facing the backlash where decision making is hard to implement, or decision making takes longer to be implemented because it has to be passed through all leaders to understand who agrees and who doesn't agree. Where the majority, where the minority. In simple terms, it's a backlash where you want to find that the euro decision making at home just alone. Because I'm not saying before we implement it, but I'm trying to show you how the euro finds itself in a backlash. In simple terms, the euro is going to find itself in a place where it doesn't really find itself surging on the markets. Oh, it's going to lack that trust because it's going to have a lot of uncertainties. Let's say even if it comes to implementing bonds like treasury bills for the euro, you're going to find a lot of uncertainties. See, the dollar owns us in has safe havens, simple terms. But to understand today, the almost have it too is European bonds. That's where stories become a big bazaar. Because we're having over 27 countries, we should try to understand that each country has different GDP. We have better performing countries, we have worse performing countries. And within these countries, we have countries that once hit their GDP or hit their real numbers on how do they perform it. For example, the Greece, how they really performed back then, that was around 2010, 2009, something like that. I don't remember well, but they all faced a backlash because there was lack of pure information. There was what I would call secrecy in how countries were performing. The one that was performing good and the one that was performing bad, you find investors find themselves in a moment of confusion where to invest their money or where to issue bonds to in simple terms. Because if you find the German GDP doing better, you're going to find the Italy GDP doing a bit shallow way and way up, simple terms. This discourages the euro because its own structure, its own structure is well off in simple terms. Well, my next factor on that will be the military policy of the EU. See, to have a standing currency or to have a currency that's likely to be implemented to the world, you must have what they call a military fear factor. If you look at the US policy, it has many of us to call it that. Whenever you have a fear factor in military policies, you're going to find yourself implementing your own currency, like it or not. Either it's strong or not. Today, the US dollar is facing almost $37 trillion of debt in simple terms. we must try to understand that even though it's serving as such a threat, we are still using the US currency in simple terms because of the fear of its military strength. 2 days back, the EU just submitted to the Trump deal in simple terms. You should try to understand that it submitted to that Trump deal just for 2 or 3 factors in simple terms. One, the past policy would be like it wanted military strength. It wanted to have and it also wanted the markets of the US. In simple terms, US holds the biggest market. Okay, the US hold the biggest market today. And when I speak to the Trump deal today stopped the EU from showed how the EU is weak in simple terms. It showed how the EU currency is weak over the US currency. In simple terms, it showed the weakness in their own currency, on their own governance. Like, you cannot stand up for your own interests, to save your own interests. It showed that, because it showed to some submission to the US, like to the US in simple terms. It also showed that even though the euro would have been a better currency to be traded in than the US dollar, it lacks the military strength. Whenever you lack the military strength to do something, it shows that you cannot really replace the US dollar in simple terms, because you must provide what they call a structure, a clean structure. If we look at the stock exchange, okay, the most liquidated currency in the world today is the US dollar. Other than the euro has some credibility. As I said before, it comes from the home structure. The home structure of the euro is the foundation of the euro, makes it to be unattractive to investors to be maybe buying the euro. I'm not saying that they don't buy the bonds, but they come back. Becoming a reserve currency makes it harder. I would recommend the Chinese currency to be the next currency, but it's also less the trust has been built for the US dollar because of its military strength, and standing on its own interest makes it way stronger. Like, that's something you cannot be gonna change. I just give an example. Today, the US is serving a debt of almost 37 trillion. Its ratio to GDP, that's almost 120% of its GDP. That's a lot. That scares the investor. That's why we are seeing investors running for things like gold, running for metals. But why the euro cannot replace the US dollar is one or two reasons we must understand. In the first place, we should try to understand that whenever you lack military strength, whenever you lack the right structure of how to run a currency, you're not going to have that just because everything begins on trust. Okay. Yes, the US dollar today is still having that trust because its treasury bills are still seen today as however, though the Moody came up and ranked it, it's no longer having the 3 A's, it's having just the 2 A's, meaning that, like, it's no longer safe haven as it used to be, but still safe for your treasury bills. However, that still cannot be said the same to the euro bonds or the T-bills of the euro, simple terms. I'm not saying that they are bad currencies. No, they are really, it's a good currency. The euro is a good currency, but its inflammation or its own structure, how it's structured and how it's implemented to the rest of the world, that's what makes it risky in simple terms. There's a lot of uncertainties in the euro currency through its own structure. Breaking it down, it could be like something really down. So in simple terms, however much we would have wanted to see the euro becoming the next currency, more factors behind that will be like it has a lot to work on. Simple terms. Just by conclusion, I just wanted to say that the euro has to fix the home structure. It has to fix its own central bank. How factors implemented, and how the home structure needs to be restored or to be recouped from the US structure. And something which I'm sure that most of the European governments are not ready to see, because European governments are not ready to see themselves as states, are not ready to see themselves as under one country. A division between Europe that has been taking place for over years, because Europe was once a nation under, if I remember well, under the Roman Empire. But the division that they brought themselves into becoming European members, and decision making concerning commerce or economics stays in single-handed behaviors, backlashes the use of the European currency. Well, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.